were talking about in the last segment, we were talking about control. And we were talking about how you, in a reverse mortgage, take the whole understanding, the whole definition of the reverse is you, a homeowner, being able to control the mortgage on your home. And there's so many of us out there who are under 62 that would love to have that control, but we're too young. At 62 and over, I'm not saying you're too old, but you meet FHA's guidelines, almost got in trouble there, FHA's guidelines for qualifying for a reverse. You got to be at least 62, or at least one of the spouses has to be. That rule changed in 2014 when President Obama was in, and that way it made it possible that if you were under 62 as a spouse, you would now be protected. But that's only if you did a reverse after 2014, after his birthday in August, or if you refinance it. So if you haven't refinanced it yet, and you're still under 62, or you didn't take advantage of that rule change, you got to do so. Don't wait, otherwise you could be leaving that loved one out in the street, which we don't want to happen. There's a couple people I know that are in that situation, and they're not doing anything about it. And I can't, what's the word? Change somebody. I can't control them. That's one of the things you can't do. So, control. In a reverse mortgage, you have that complete control. You get to control your whole mortgage now. So if you're 62 and over and you're still paying a mortgage, you really got to think to yourself, am I in the best position possible for life's emergencies, for my retirement? Because I don't have control over this mortgage payment. I am subservient to the bank as far as how much I have to pay and when I have to pay. And if I do not meet their criteria, which is written in super tiny fine print in the contract, I am in jeopardy of losing this home, or if I pass on, my spouse is in jeopardy of losing that home if they do not fulfill that contract. In the reverse, it's the opposite. The contract is based on your terms. You control every aspect of that mortgage as far as that payment is concerned. If you want to make a $500 payment, you can do so. If you want to make a $1,000 payment, you can do so. So I've got two scenarios. I had two gentlemen that I spoke to yesterday, almost identical scenarios in this sense. One of them had a huge balance, over $300,000. One of them has a small balance, around $60,000. The one with $60,000 wanted to combine a first and a second mortgage and said, you know what, I'm thinking about the reverse mortgage though. So we kind of went through it, and the questions that I asked, and this is what separates me from other loan officers out there. I'm not saying you have to go through me, but what happens with me is I dig deep because I throw my wallet right out the door, and I have Christ, who's always seated next to me, but I present him to you as far as, hey, let's think about what's best for you. And that's putting Christ first, in greed not even in the equation. So I basically was presenting, what do you want to do? And he's like, I just want to combine these mortgages and I want to pay them off as quickly as possible. I'm like, that's great. So you got two options. You could keep the status quo that you're in and keep on making those extra payments that you were. But let me ask you something. If something happens in life and you need to stop making that payment 3 years from now, are you going to be able to stop doing that? If some crisis comes up. And that's what we were exploring. That was the food for thought. I wasn't looking for the answer because I wasn't like, hey, I want that answer now. Because if the answer is this, then you must do a reverse. That's not how it works with me. It's food for thought. But what we realized was all this extra money that he is paying each month, I'm telling him in a reverse to do the same thing. To pay that extra money that's adding up to around $1,000, $1,100. And he'll pay off that combined mortgage of the first and the second through a reverse mortgage more quickly than he would status quo. But he will set himself up for this. Things he can't control. You can't control if a tree goes through your house and knocks down the roof. Can't control if all of a sudden you slipped and fell and you broke your hip. Because a lot of times we slip and fall, we don't break our hip, but you can't control it if it is the one time where you do, and you do break your hip, and it's going to cost money. So these life emergencies that we don't have control over, are you properly prepared for them? So this was getting him to understand that I was saying, hey, in a reverse, I want you to do exactly what you've been doing. But if something comes up, I want to set you up that you got the ability to put that stop sign up and stop making payments or reduce the amount that you're making until you can recover. And if you don't recover and are not able to continue making those payments again, I don't want you to be penalized for it. Because in the situation he's in right now, if he stopped making those payments, he not only will be penalized, the penalty will be you will lose your home, which he doesn't want to do. Okay? And he wants to be able to leave it to his family. Second scenario, had a gentleman, really nice guy, okay? Really a go-getter. Most of my reverse mortgages, people are struggling. This guy's a go-getter, got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of great ideas. But he's about to have this huge, hefty mortgage from these wonderful ideas that he has that I didn't get to tell him. I was in the same boat with what he was doing. I had the same motivation, same ideas, construction, building a home, all of that was the same identically, okay? But that's for another conversation with him. But we were looking into everything that was going on, and he told me, look, I really want to be able to leave this home to my child. And so then I was looking and I'm like, well, how old is your child? Because that's important, because if your child's just getting out of college, are they going to be able to take on this new mortgage that you have, or are they just going to sell the home? We don't know that stuff at that age. You know, if they're coming out of college, who knows what they're going to do? If they're already seasoned and settled into life, if they've got their own home, if they've already expressed to you, Mom or Dad, I don't want the home, I'm just going to sell it. All of that needs to come to the surface through your loan officer. All of this needs to be brought to the surface, and that's what I provide. 1-800-952-PRAY, 1-800-952-7729. So we're digging this stuff up, and we're finding out that, you know what, there's a good possibility his daughter's going to want to keep that home. And I'm like, great. So here's what I recommend. You either make the payments that you're making, because he's going to be starting at a 30-year mortgage. He's starting from scratch. So he's the best perfect scenario there is. Start from scratch at 30 years, making payments of what's going to be probably close to around $1,500 to $1,700 a month. And he's going to be paying and paying and paying on that mortgage. So by the time it's paid off, if he just did by the contract the bank has set up, he'll be in his 90s. Well, from the 60s to the 90s, you know stuff's going to come up in life. And is he going to be properly prepared for those emergencies that do come up? So then we threw out this scenario. In the reverse mortgage, you could then take that control of those payments of $1,500 to $1,700 and still make them. Do it. Status quo. Prove to me you can still make those payments. The great thing is somebody who's at least in that young in their 60s, that's starting from scratch, even if you're in your 70s and you just refinanced and you're starting from scratch, meaning you're in a 30-year mortgage and you're in year one, every payment you make, the majority of that payment is going towards interest, not in the reverse mortgage payment control way. The majority is going to be going, or at least half is going to be going towards the principal, if not more. So in theory, in actuality, if you took the same model, a regular mortgage and a reverse mortgage, and started at year one, and you started making the same amount of payments, you will 100% pay that reverse mortgage off 5 to 7 years sooner than you would in a regular mortgage. And that's what a lot of people want to do. But also, and more importantly, you have control. That if something happens, let's say you're on that road and you got it to where it's going to be paid off 7 years sooner, maybe 8 years sooner, but all of a sudden you hit a hiccup in life. You got to go to the hospital. You need money for this or that or whatever, and you need to stop for a year making those payments or decrease the amount. You can do so without any bad negative recourse, without any negative hit to you whatsoever. But in his regular mortgage, he can't make that decision. It's been taken away from him, and every decision has been made by the bank. So what I'm telling you is take control over things you have the ability to take control over. And if you're at least 62, I'm telling you right now, you have the ability to control your mortgage through a reverse mortgage by you making payments, by you deciding how much you want to make and how often you want to make that payment. Make payments, make payments, make payments. Don't listen to people telling you don't make a payment. Unless we dig up stuff and it comes to the surface and it doesn't make sense to make a payment. Maybe you got nobody to leave the home to. So why would you then make a payment? There's so many different things that need to be brought to the surface, but it's my job as your loan officer to do that, and that's what we do on these airwaves. That's what I do at my seminars. So I need to get into your church, I need to get in your senior center, and I need to properly inform people and educate them so whoever they go with, if they do it at all, they know the truth. And that will set you free from the bondage of the bank. 1-800, if you know Christ, you know how that sets you free. 1-800-952-PRAY, 1-800-952-7729. To God be the glory. Go out and make it a good one. Jesus is alive. Let people see it in your eyes. Amen.